You ready? Okay. Good evening. Tonight we are on the second of the Sephiroth going up the tree that is above the abyss, that is in the realm that is considered pure spirit of an infinite nature, fully and completely divine, without flaw, without separation. And so it is, well, not the sort of thing we're used to. It is definitely beyond our normal state of consciousness. And some very proper Kabbalists would say that there's nothing to see here because it's just way beyond you. Stay down with your own little problems in the lower Sephiroth, and don't bother with what's up here because you have no way of understanding it, and perhaps you shouldn't. Of course, that wouldn't be my position, because for one thing, it is essentially a part of you. It's a part of me. It's a part of the fundamental nature of things, which is something that the Kabbalah is talking about, the sort of fundamental nature of things. And so what exactly is that in, I have my little pointer here, Chokmah over here in the gray. Bina, we talked about last week, which at least it still has a planet associated with it, which is Saturn, which is considered traditionally the older god, usually thought of as quite male, although most of the symbology here talks about Bina as definitely female, as being the great mother, which means naturally that Chokmah over here will be the All-Father, will be the male principle. Now, the principle of sex is basically the principle of manifestation altogether. That manifestation comes out of polarities. Without polarities, you don't really have anything other than just than the oneness. And of course, the oneness is pretty spectacular. People do a lot to try to experience that. What is usually called, or often called, union with God. It is certainly said that those who fully enter into that higher realm of union tend to remain there. They don't even come back, which means they enter into a state of really non-manifestation. They enter into a state without the opposites. But the supernals is very interesting because it comes from the one. Kether up here, which we'll talk about next week, is the first of the Sephiroth, and it is the first in that is the first to appear out of this kind of unmanifest, what has been called the negative realms, the negative veils even, because but what they veil is just beyond. There is no manifestation, at least of a kind that we can appreciate, because it's an absolute union. But it shouldn't be thought of really as exactly nothingness. Sometimes in Buddhism, the void is thought of by many people as nothing. And that isn't really entirely true, at least according to pretty high-ranking Buddhists that I know, who say, yes, that emptiness is very important as a teaching, because without the emptiness, people are liable to get stuck in manifestation. So It's actually a form of liberation to think of that which is beyond manifestation. And one way of thinking of what's beyond manifestation is to think of it as nothingness, because it's no thingness. It's not a thing. But that doesn't mean that it's actually nothing. Because it's, well, in a certain obvious way, you can call it nothing, but it's a rather potent and fertile nothing, because out of it comes everything. And the beginning of that everything is Kether. Kether is the first point of being. And the God name is actually Eheye, or Eheye Asher Eheye. I am that I am, as it has been translated, or sometimes it's translated as I will be what I will be. It's a little bit like Popeye. I am that I am. But that I am is just pure, radiant, infinite I. It is, and what is that? Well, it's hard to make much definition, because at that level, it hasn't really expressed itself fully. It's the beginning of an expression. It's the beginning of manifestation. But it does begin with an identity, the I, which is in everyone and in some sense in everything. So while the Kabbalists certainly tend to see the Godhead as somewhat separate from us, in that it's so exalted and so godlike, but that essentially is the same I that is in each one of us, which means that we're not just a mistake, we're not just a confusion. Yes, we're confused, and yes, our egos get very confused about what we are, and then we think we're Democrats and Republicans, and we're good and we're bad, and all of these different possibilities that we can identify with. But underneath that is this absolute knowing that we have, that we exist. There is something there, and that something there is ultimately in Kether. It is real. We are real. We do exist. But we don't just exist in this sort of pure, perfect stasis. We come forth and we manifest. And this is about manifestation. It's the tree of life. So it's something that grows, it's something that exists, it's something that bears fruit. But in order to do that, it first, instead of just remaining a unity, it pours forth, as Dion Fortune says in her beautiful mystical Kabbalah, that the energy and the power keeps pouring forth, and it pours forth sort of beyond the sort of original manifestation, which is this I am, this original being, and divides then into these two opposites, Chokmah and Bina, which are usually thought of as male and female in this system, though I think you could actually use sort of Hindu mythology, wherein the female is the active and the male is actually the passive, and then you sort of change the symbolism around, but I think it would actually still work. But I will stick with the original symbolism. And the original symbolism is that Chokmah is the sort of dynamic force, beginning of the force that creates manifestation. It's the original, it's not just I am, but I will be, or even the desire. It's the desire to pour forth, to create, to make. It's no longer just the central stasis of I am, and I need nothing else because I am perfect. It's like, yeah, I'm all that, but I want to do something. I have desire, I have intention, I have will. So it's not that it's not the stasis that people often speak about when they're talking about these sort of higher levels of things, or the absolute unity that that people speak as though manifestation is just sort of a mistake, because the only real thing is the absolute unity. Well, that might be the beginning of the real, but we have intentions, we have desires, we have inspirations. Is it so odd to think that maybe there is that greater, original, deeper aspect of reality that also has those things? And that is what Chokmah is. Chokmah is that first intention to create. There aren't a lot of images there. There aren't the sort of more developed and intricate and sort of complex ideas about what that creation is. It is more that the divine is kind of shining, that the divine is pouring itself out, and that what it pours out becomes more things. And again, in Kabbalah, you don't have creation out of nothing. Well, in a sense you do, because the Godhead itself comes out of nothing, but creation comes out of that Godhead pouring itself forth and sort of dividing and interacting with itself as it comes down into sort of denser and denser forms of creation. So Chokmah is pouring itself out. Bina is, in this case, considered the feminine in the sense that it is receptive, but it also is that which is giving form. So, it's like the guy gets up in the morning and he's full of all kinds of ideas and he wants to do all kinds of things. And his wife says, well, yes, that's nice, but why don't you do this actual thing? Like, fix the sink, do something specific. So the sort of perhaps a wild overflowing of energy becomes directed more specifically and becomes contained in the interaction out of which the rest of creation will come. The God name is Yah, or sometimes it's Yahweh, the early name of God. Not the only name of God, but one of them. There's also Elohim, which is interesting in that it's a plural with a feminine ending. And that is the God that in the beginning says, let us create man in our image. Oh, okay. Our? Yes, our. So there's a multiplicity already in the Elohim. But the Yah, or the Yahweh, sometimes it is called Chokmah is called the Yod of the Tetragrammaton, which is the using Kabbalistic imagery, it's really the lingam, the penis of the Tetragrammaton. In other words, it's the original sort of thrusting, intention, direction, pouring forth. The archangel is Ratziel, kind of a strange name because it has the word rat in it, but Ratziel is a name actually means secrets of God. And it is said that, traditionally it is said that when Adam and Eve were thrown out of Eden, that Ratziel had a book with all of the mysteries of God in it, because Ratziel sort of stands next to the throne of God and is something of a scribe and writes down everything that is said and all the conversations that happen and the divine room of highest royalty. And so he wrote these things down, which is what he does, but then he gave that as a book to Adam and Eve so that they would have some kind of knowledge as they went into the world and perhaps would be able to find their way ultimately back. And this pissed off the other angels because they thought he had no right to do such a thing. And one of the other angels came and threw the book in the ocean. And then God actually had it retrieved. He decided to side with Ratziel. Maybe he thought he overreacted, throwing them out of Eden for doing something that he basically set up to happen. And so it was eventually given back to them or to their descendants. And so there's thought to be this, tradition of magic and mystery that comes from the very highest. But I would say that what it is suggesting, especially as the Ratziel is the archangel here, is that there is that the mysteries of the divine are ultimately what is being played out in manifestation. What is being manifested is, ultimately, at least supposed to be, the divine itself that is being manifested. And the divine is sort of essentially mysterious because it's infinite and it is always in some sense beyond its creation. But in this tradition, it is also immanent. It's within the creation, which means that it's within us. So that the mystery that we also are, the mystery we are to ourselves, is that we are embodiments of the essential ultimate being, intention, desire, and substance of God. So that mystery, the mystery of God is also our mystery. We are also more than we appear. In some sense, more perhaps than we can appear, because there's always there's limitation in manifestation. Manifestation, you might say, is kind of a slowed down version of the infinite emanation of the Godhead. Yes, the Godhead is infinitely manifesting, but when it finally gets down here to Malkuth, where we are, it's quite a bit slower and a little bit. It's more piece by piece. Their very individuality becomes more and more pronounced as we come down the tree. So we too have within us, at the sort of deepest level of our being, the mystery of the manifestation of the great mystery. It's the revelation of something that is something that can't really be explained or contained, but is going to manifest nonetheless. It's going to appear. It's going to, in some sense, show itself, and especially as love. Because this is really the beginning of love. Love, in some sense, requires an other to really work. I think, if I remember this correctly, Aleister Crowley said something to the effect, he did say, yes, the guy was a little bit crazy here and there, but, he did actually say some wise things, one of which was that the divine divides itself for the purpose of love. It divides itself so that love can bring it back together in some sense. So the beginning of love is actually here, after the I am, it begins to want to share, which requires an other. And the other here becomes Bina, the Divine Mother, who is in as much as Chokmah is the sort of energy of the divine, the overflowing energy of the divine. It's not just static. It's not just one. It's not just sort of perfectly I am and I have no need of any other because I am everything. I'm really cool. I am Kether. Hear me roar. It's no. It goes beyond that. It goes beyond itself in some way, because it's creating. And what it's creating ultimately is a new version of itself, which is what, we potentially are. We are the awakened beings that can look back and connect with that ultimate source while being individual, while being particular. You notice that, even in animals, which of course turn out to be, far more complex than people have often made them out to be, but anybody that's ever had pets knows that they're all different. There's no two dogs that are the same. There's no two cats that are the same. They have very distinct personalities and likes and dislikes and behaviors. And then when you come to people, oh my word, we're just so individual. We're so distinct. You're always amazed if you find two people that are very much like each other. That's unusual. What's not unusual is that people are different, because that seems to be a part of what manifestation is. It's not a fascistic or purely communist version of creation, because it does not seem to want everybody to march in a straight line and be the same. It doesn't seem to want that. It seems to want differences, individuality, persons. But that comes from this interaction of the divine itself, which again sort of divides itself into energy, Chokmah, and substance, Bina. So, and then everything that comes down the tree comes from that. Everything has substance and moves toward form, and everything has energy that animates and transforms the forms. One of the sort of interesting technical aspects of the tree, which I've talked about before, but I'll talk about again, is the pillars. If you count the Sephiroth on this side, this is called the pillar of severity. And actually, Gevura here, which is sort of astrologically Mars, is pretty severe in any normal kind of way of thinking, because it tends to break things down. It tends to break down form. So there's certainly a destructive element of it. And on the other side, this is called the pillar of mercy, and then Hesed actually means mercy, and it's mercy in the way we think of mercy, kindness and love and generosity and giving. But how are they pillars? And why are they called, this is called the feminine pillar, and over here this is called the masculine pillar. Again, I think these are ways of speaking, and they're not really, shouldn't be taken too exactly. But the thinking is that this is the pillar of severity because this whole pillar has more to do with form. It's the beginning of form in Bina, the beginning of substance. It's the substance of the Godhead. And then when it comes down below the abyss, it's in a most active form, and it is that place when substance kind of crushes in on itself. There's just so much gravity, there's so much intention that the substance isn't going to let things stay the same. It actually breaks down substance. And then Mercury down here, Hod, is again substance, but it's sort of mental substance. And so it's ideas and images and thoughts and the intricacies of the mind, but which again are thought of as kind of a form of matter, or it's a type of form. And you can certainly see that in thinking, because one of the problems with thinking is that it's full of limitations and it's full of contradictions. And when you get too stuck on one idea or another idea, you often become very limited, because it is a limitation, a necessary limitation, but limitations are both sort of positive and potentially negative. But it's limitation in that it's coming down further and further into very specific form. On the other side of the tree, we have the original love and intention and sort of pouring forth of divine life. Comes down a little bit further. It's in Hesed, it's more, you have sort of clearer ideas of what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to be generous, you're trying to be loving, you're trying to create a world that is giving and protecting and kindly. And then we come down a bit further in Netzach, which is astrologically Venus, and there it is to a great extent the energy is the sort of fertile energy of nature, which we experience very much as nature's beauty, and it's sort of its abundance and its radiance. One of the things that's a little bit hard to explain by a purely materialistic view of creation is why it's so damn beautiful. Nature does not have to be beautiful. Why does it have to be beautiful? How does beauty promote reproduction necessarily? Well, it might if you're attracted to whatever, the other portion of your species that you want to reproduce. But do the mountains have to be beautiful? Do the plants have to be beautiful? Does the ocean have to be beautiful? Does the sunset have to be beautiful? Even monkeys have been seen coming into a place where there's a waterfall and a little lake or pond, and they go crazy, and it kind of looks like they're reacting to just the beauty of it. Even they seem to react to it. They don't just walk into it, I'm a monkey, oh, there's water, oh, there's whatever. No, they get excited. Why is that? Why does there have to be love? Why does there have to be beauty? Well, I say it's not just so that it can function. It's not just for sort of rigid practical purpose. It's the overflowing of the nature of that which is doing the creation itself. It's the overflowing of the beauty of the Godhead. It's not just Yahweh giving laws. It's a whole lot more than that, and it's a lot richer than that. So we have polarities as we come down the tree too. So there's the polarity between Chokmah and Bina, this sort of energy and substance and form, and they interact with each other. And traditionally, they would create the divine child here in Da'ath. They're supposed to have a child. They're, creative parents. But something went wrong, which is also an interesting part of the system. It's saying, no, everything isn't perfect, obviously. I mean, if it says everything is perfect, people do say that. And, in some higher sense, sure, everything's perfect, but, come on. The hospital is full of things that don't look very perfect. Young people dying, it doesn't seem all that perfect. There's terror and disease and all kinds of frightening things, somewhat less than perfect. However, they also, the Kabbalists say, yes, but we're working on that. As a matter of fact, this creation, the whole creation itself is said to be in response to things that went wrong. It's a salvific creation. It's a messianic creation. So they admit that there are problems, which is good. That's one of the aspects of the Gnostics that Carl Jung thought was good, was that they recognized that there was evil. They recognized that there were problems. And also they didn't limit the cause of the problems to just people. If you have problems, you always have to go to the top in some sense, And often the top would like not to be responsible for the problems, so the top tries to, the management tries to blame the workers for everything. But, that's just not really very reasonable. And, surely the workers can cause all kinds of problems, but if there are systemic problems, then you have to, call into question the top. So in this system, it is said that a manifestation in some way went wrong, in some way didn't remain perfect. And so there was a break between the perfect, so I guess they can remain perfect, and the rest of manifestation. And so what is attempting to happen is to reunite those things, to reunite the sort of ideal, the perfect love, the perfect ideas with, our imperfect lives, which also have to be, given some kind of credit. Yes, our lives are imperfect, but still they are filled with the ultimate reality. Yes, as egoic individuals, we are confused and we do stupid things. Sometimes we regret those things, often long after they're done, when it's too late to do much about them. but at least we regret them. At least we're capable of learning. At least we're capable of transforming. And according to this tradition, when we transform, when we're able to bring more love and kindness and generosity in our lives, as well as some measure of restraint, then we are healing the world also. We are healing manifest reality. So it's we aren't just working for ourselves. We like the divine are sharing. We're giving. We're healing that which is in some way broken, that which is in some way separate. And also, I should also mention again that these polarities continue to work, and they work by creating a third. So this sort of divine kindness and generosity, as well as the divine sort of strictness, we're not having this anymore. They create a third, which is Tifereth, which is ultimately the soul of the tree, and our own higher nature, that we all have within us a truly higher nature. We have some kind of developed deeper soul, deeper truth. And according to some, that this seldom completely incarnates. It kind of remains in a little bit higher realm, but also can at times ensoul us. And we all do have, at least occasionally, times when we feel like we're more than we normally are, when we're fuller, when we're more balanced, because it's definitely the nature of balance. The center of the tree is connected with every Sephiroth directly, except Malkuth. So there's a little bit of a burden with materiality. It can block our consciousness of that, true, but it also ensouls everything. So we have a deeper nature that is said to be in contact with everything else, that balances everything else. And then we get down here. This is kind of the astral plane, as it were, the unconscious to a great extent. And this is where sort of mind and feelings come together in Yesod, which is more properly the unconscious, the realm of, the place of dreams, the place of specific but often unconscious impulses, and then eventually we come down to actual material manifestation, and then here we are in Pasadena, in this very room. Physically we're here, but there's more of us. We are all deeper. We are all broader. We are all capable of being more, capable of becoming more. And there is this kind of higher energy, inspiration, life of Chokmah is always pouring down. It doesn't. Our creation as a being doesn't stop. It doesn't stop when we think we stop. It doesn't stop when we sleep. It doesn't stop when we fail. It doesn't stop if we're super successful, because there's always more, which is why it's important also not to get stuck. Why it's important to at times, practice some sense of emptiness, that it's actually well, it can be a problem when bad things happen, but it can be a problem when really good things happen. Because when bad things happen, you want to get rid of them. So, unless but you can identify with them too. You can you've been victimized, and then it can be a very sort of strong emotion, strong image, big impression on you. And then you kind of grow around it. And then being a victim can become part of your identity, which is not such a good thing. It might be a good thing to be able to recognize that that's there, and see if you can heal it, if you can do something about it. But if you identify as a victim, then, well, you're kind of always going to be a victim. You're going to repeat it because it's what you are, and that's usually a rather unconscious identity. And unconscious things tend to just keep playing themselves out over and over in a kind of mechanical way. So, it's a problem to be too attached to something negative. But you can be very attached to something positive too, in a way that you're holding on to it, or something really good happened to you. I know a story of a man that he had a very profound kind of kundalini experience at one point in his life, where he, like all of the mysteries of the universe were revealed, and was in this, incredible state that lasted for, I guess, a couple of weeks, and then it faded away, and then everything was boring, and the person spent the whole life trying to get it back, and couldn't. And so everything else was kind of, not so great, which meant that they weren't really living fully their lives. They were dreaming about the past. So, even really, really good things have to, in some sense, be let go or transcended. And one way that they're transcended is that the energy keeps coming. The energy always wants more unfoldment. The energy does not want you to stay even in this very fabulous place. No, that fabulous place is so that you can grow even further. But we have to be able to trust that where we're going is more important than where we've been. That we have direction. We're moving, and in some sense moving forward. Even if we can't see where that's going, which is obviously much of the time, because we have limited consciousness. Our consciousness is limited to this world in many ways. So that greater sense of reality, we're not always aware of it, but it's there, and it is flowing, and it is directing us. One of the sort of thoughts that I think really is applicable to Chokmah is a particular Mahayana Buddhist idea, a practice, which is called bodhicitta. Bodhicitta means basically a bodhi is awakened, as in the Buddha, he was the awakened one, and citta is mind. So it's awakened mind. But it is a very particular way of looking at things and of being, which is, it's very noble, although at times it might even appear to be insane, because it's so noble. But basically what it is saying is that it is a way to become enlightened. It is the Mahayana Buddhist most basic principle. And if you ever listen to any Mahayana Buddhists for any length of time, they're going to be talking about bodhicitta. Bodhicitta means that instead of, of course partially it's a criticism to or other earlier forms of Buddhism, because whatever form you're practicing is better than the previous ones, and you're obliged to let them know. The earlier forms of Buddhism were focused more on individual enlightenment, that you are unconscious and you are suffering, and the way to get out of that suffering is to become enlightened. But the Mahayana Buddhists say, yes, but it will be an incomplete enlightenment. It won't be a full enlightenment if you're just doing it for yourself. Because if you're just doing it for yourself, you're automatically, in some sense, excluding the vast everyone else. The vast, vast, vast everyone else. So what they say is that your intention for becoming enlightened should be that you recognize that others are suffering, and that if you truly become enlightened, you'll be able to help others. And so they develop the sort of a consciousness of compassion, of a recognition that others are suffering. You're suffering, which they're not supposed to ignore that. You're suffering, others are suffering. Nobody really wants to suffer. The end of suffering is perfect enlightenment, a perfect understanding, or, as the title Chokmah actually means, wisdom, perfect wisdom, that you understand what things mean, you understand how they work, you understand what you are, you understand what others are, and you're able to help them to understand as well. And it is thought to be a far more powerful way of becoming enlightened, because it recognizes this sort of fundamental truth of that we are all actually connected with each other. Whether we like that or not. Sometimes I like to be connected with other people, sometimes I'd rather not. But in point of fact, at a deeper level, we are actually connected. So when we become enlightened, if our intention is service, is kindness, is love toward all of our brothers and sisters and all conscious beings, then we will direct our intentions toward them, as opposed to just sort of going into nirvana ourselves. And that is the vow of the bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is somebody that is sort of working on the path of enlightenment and of benefiting others. And that the bodhisattva vows that they will not enter into nirvana until everyone else enters. Now, there's a bit of a logical problem there, because, technically it could mean, you go up to a door with a bunch of people and everybody goes, oh no, you go first. Oh no, you go first. Oh no, you go first. Then nobody goes in. But, if you're all bodhisattvas, that might be fine. Because wherever you are actually will be nirvana. You will have the ultimate depth, the ultimate love, the ultimate kindness, the ultimate consciousness. So, wherever you are is really pretty much going to be fine. But I believe that really applies very much here, because it suggests a direction for our lives. And by that, I don't mean that everybody should become a Buddhist or everybody should, promise not to enter nirvana before everyone else does, or anything in particular like that. But it does suggest that we actually have a deep and abiding responsibility, not just to ourselves, but to each other. And that responsibility is basically kindness, basically love, basically, appreciation. And that kindness and that love and that appreciation is the fundamental energy that drives creation. That is the fundamental energy that brings about manifestation. That manifestation is not a mistake, but is a ultimately, at least can become, as we become more conscious, a dance of love. It is the wedding dance of the divine couple. It is a movement. It is an expression. It is a pouring forth of infinite manifestations of the essential glory that is our divine right, is our divine truth, is what we are. But it has to be manifested. At least in this system, that's how it works. It has to come forth. We have to be able to bring our highest intentions, our highest love, our deepest truth in some way into manifestation. Which is why it's a good idea when you have some kind of inspiration, some inspiring thought, or something meaningful happens, or you have a meaningful dream, to at least write it down, or do what Jung did in his Red Book. He made paintings of all of these things. Well, of course, he was a rather good painter, so maybe he was good at it, so maybe he should do it. Maybe we should do something else. But the point is that by bringing it down in some sense into some physical form, we are uniting the heavens and the earth. We are contributing to the messianic principle, or what is Kabbalistically called tikkun, the mystical healing of the world, the restoring the world to its higher purpose or its deeper purpose, or restoring ourselves to who we truly are. At least we can, while accepting who we are in form, and that's not always easy to do, but it is a good idea to be able to recognize in some sense our imperfections. We can always ask our friends to let us know what they think of us. It's painful at times to find out that you've been a terrible fool. I've done these practices with my Buddhist friends, and one of the things that would happen during these, and evidently not just to me, and a number of people reported the exact same thing, I'd be sitting there chanting or whatever, and all of a sudden, something that I had done goes right in my face in a way that I just completely can't deny it. It's like, I did that. That was wrong. It was stupid. I at times I'm mortified because I would never do such a thing. But there it is. Oh, what? I do have sins. And it's painful. Nobody likes that. Well, some people might, but, But it's good. It's good to recognize our limitations. That's as a matter of consciousness, being somewhat awake, somewhat aware. But that's not all that we are. That is not all that we are. And that is the point of seeing those things, so that we can go beyond them, so that we can change, so that we can see. That's not what I wanted. My thinking was limited when I did that because I wanted, such and such a thing, and I was, going straight for it and ignoring what it meant for anyone else. I was taking care of myself. Well, that's reasonable, but it may not be enough because it didn't take care of those parts of myself that love. So we learn to incorporate love. We learn to incorporate the higher life. And when we do that, then we ourselves are more. We ourselves are larger. We ourselves are happier because we're more complete. We're more balanced. We're more human, actually. Not plaster saints, but loving humans, which actually do a lot more than plaster saints. You can talk to a loving human, and they can talk right back to you, and maybe they can help you. Plaster saint, maybe. Maybe you can make the connection in your mind. But we are deeply connected with that higher, complete, original life and light. And it pours into us at all times. It pours through us at all times. And is always encouraging us to grow, to go beyond wherever we are. Which, if we're in a bad place, yes, let's go beyond that. But even if we're in a good place, there's more. There is way more. And that is where we're going. We are moving toward greatness, and we shouldn't be ashamed of that, and we shouldn't think, oh, I'm being, I'm letting my ego get away with me. I'm getting swell-headed. That's one of the mystical warnings against sort of recognizing that you're a part of the divine. There's the fear that you start running around telling everybody you're God, and and then you won't act like it, so it'll be embarrassing. But yes, we will embarrass ourselves. Yes, we will get ahead of ourselves, but at least according to this tradition and the Gnostic tradition, and actually many other traditions, we are going toward a greatness that is beyond any comprehension. But we can't get there by just hoping for it or imagining that it is there, or worse, imagining that we've already done it. We get there by growing there, by allowing ourselves to continue to transform, allowing ourselves to continue to grow, allowing ourselves to understand where we are, as well as having the the faith that there is that within us which intends to bring us to greater things, to higher things, to more loving things. And just one last thing, keep the compassion in mind. That's the Buddhists are very big on that. Christ was big on that. A lot of Christians aren't big on that, but love. If what you're doing can't be substantially understood as love, then you're very likely going off the rails in some way. Yes, love could be being strict. Love could mean even destroying some things if they're in the way. Somebody attacks your children. The right thing to do is whatever it takes to protect them, and that could very well be destructive. What you don't want to do is get between a bear and her cubs. Don't want to do that. Why? Because she knows that. She's not confused. She knows that her job is to protect her cubs. So let us be of the protective sort. Let us be of the kindly sort, the giving sort, but not the foolish sort. Not people that you don't have to let people run you over. That's not actually helping anybody. Sometimes you have to carry the sword. Sometimes you have to carry the cup. But always with wisdom. Always with the consciousness that there is an inspiration of love and life flowing through things, and that you side with that. That you side with love. So with that, we will take a little break, and then we will come back for the invocation of the divine life and love and inspiration of Chokmah. Thank you.